अरदास बोलना जी वाहिगुरु तीने ताप निवारण हारा दुख हंता सुख रास ताको बिगड़ना को लागे जा की प्रभ आगे अरदास अरदास एक ओंकार वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। ਨੀ ਨਿਮਾਣਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਮਾਣ ਨਿਤਾਣਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਤਾਣ ਨਿਓਟਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਓਟ ਨੇ ਅਸਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਅਸਰੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਕਰਨ ਪਿਤਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀਓ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਜੋਦੜੀ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਦਤਾਰ ਪਿਤਾ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਓਟ ਆਸਰਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸਾਈਬਰ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੁੜਨ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਮਾਈ ਭਾਈ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਭਰਿਆ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਆਪ ਕਰਵਾਉਣੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਵਾਧਾ ਘਾਟਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਚੁੱਕ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੀ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਜ ਰਾਸ ਕਰਨੇ ਸਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਚਿਤਾਵੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਤੇਰੇ ਪਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ
ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Charan Singh ji, जब तक इंटरप्रेट ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਜੁੜਦੇ ਨੇ, can you just give us like ਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਲਾਸਟ ਵੀਕ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਕਵਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ and where we want to go next?
I think if I'm correctly recalling, we were trying to reflect more on the Sunniyeh, and then in the later half we started with the Manniyeh Pauri. And since we are considering all the 4 Pauris together, Ekunkar Kaurji has put a nice explanation, word by word, line by line, on the blog. So it will be helpful to read that. And some other panel members have also put their translation and perspectives. So visiting the blog will be a good thing. To start this discussion for today, I think if we are still focusing, we'll be focusing on Manniyeh. I, as several participants have expressed, I am of the view that Sunniyeh and Manniyeh are in continuity with each other. However, what Manniyeh means to me is that when the Naam Niranjan manifests in the human body, it is very hard to accept that something has happened in the body. It's a big change. Like, for example, a mother when conceives, she has little challenges to accept the fact that a child is attached to her, unless until she starts noticing the movement of that child. It's such a big movement. There are 9 openings in our body, which we are very well aware, and we know all those. Whereas when the Naam manifests in the human body, and it does manifest, it's very hard to accept that fact, because one keeps on doubting one's own identity, and the presence of Naam normally is not. And that's where Guru Nanak's emphasis on Manniyeh comes, that yes, that Naam Niranjan, that is, everything is in ape aap, has manifested, and Guru has been very benevolent on that body where that Naam has pergast, Naam has manifested. So from my perspective, when intensive listening, the one Naam that is listening and speaking also, when that Naam manifests, and the seeking mind, when comes in the company of that Naam, then the Sunniyeh is accomplished as well as the Manniyeh gets accomplished, because it's reiteration. Dridana penda apne aap nu ki nahi, one is at the threshold of that blissful Naam connectivity. So it actually happens. It's not mythical, it's not anything in a supernatural word. A part actually does happen, and one can experience the movement of that part, and that manifestation of the Gurmukhe Naam Pragat jada hunda. And that's how Guru Nanak says that Guru Nanak ka Padshah disse jahar, one can easily verifiable. It's a verifiable fact in the body. Like I can verify my eyes, I can verify my hands. Similarly, when Naam Pragasta, one can verify that also. And it is in this regard that all the Manniyeh diyan pauriyan, the initial challenge to accept that comes more prominent in that. That's my take on it.
Thank you, Chi. And I think I can say interpret Virji.
Hanji, Vaji Khalsa Fateh. Sorry.
No problem. I think I just asked Charan Singh Virji that if he can summarize where we left off last week, that we finished the Suniye in the first half and then we moved to Manniyeh Pauri. And I can give you who's on the panel today. So if we have Ranbir Singh ji, Paramjit Singh ji, Charan Singh ji, Ekonkar Khalsa ji, Dilpreet Veer ji, and Bani Kaur.
Okay, good to have everybody. So do you want me to go ahead? I mean, so I apologize. I had come in as a panelist, but now I guess it's my turn to be do moderation. Usually I think Ravinder Virji is the one who does a really good job moderating, but I'll try and kind of fill his shoes. My understanding was, so मैं पूरा video नहीं देख सकिया from previous week's discussion about Manniyeh di Pauriyan. But if I think Harvinder and I spoke earlier, one of the things we discussed is maybe so in all of the four Pauris, you know, the refrain is "Aisa naam rinjan hoye jeko man jane man koe," right? I mean, I think we'll focus on that. But prior to that, one of the things that I heard was someone had a question regarding what's the difference between in the very first one of these Pauris, which is Pauri number 12, it is Manniyeh with just one la, and in the other Pauris it is Manniyeh with Dola. So, you know, maybe discuss and focus on the word manna or man, but from the perspective of Manniyeh and Manneh. So A and A. That was one of the things. The other thing that, at least for me, you know, we have many, and in the blog, I think Ravinder Virji wrote and someone else wrote, you know, an interpretation of what manna means. That was one of the most difficult words to actually translate. But I think, you know, Gavna, so Gave, Sunana, and Manna, all these three things have been, so far in Japji Sahib, have been covered. So there's been one Pauri about Gavna, there's been one Pauri about Sunna, and now we're on the Manna part. So is there an interconnection or not between Gana, Sunna, and Manna? And what is the next step? What is potentially the next step is a discussion point that, you know, popped to my mind. So if it's okay with everyone, if this makes sense, we can at least maybe go around and what's people's perspective on the difference between Manneh, so in Manneh higat kehi na jai versus Manneh surat hove man budh. And maybe we can just go down what people have. If there is any difference, is there any grammatical or etymological difference in these words? Arvinder, does that sound like a plan? We start with that and then we get into the Asanam.
Sure, I think that's
okay. So on the bottom of the screen, I see Bani is first, and you know all the icons of all of the people there. So maybe Bani Kaur, you can start. Oh, she just disappeared. All right. So next is Vijay the na nahi janda. It says just says D.
Dilpreet Veer ji.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, there's Bani.
Yeah,
Hi,
sorry,
Bani.
it crashed all of a sudden when I took it off. So definitely I see a grammatical difference. I mean, like you've already stated, in terms of meaning, I'm guessing yes, but I would have to say I don't know if it's like a thesis and then there's like a premise in terms of Manneh is the thesis and then Manneh is going back to the Manneh. Manneh, sorry. That may guess me, but just taking a shot at it.
Okay. So Manneh ki kat kehi na jaye jeko keh piche pichtai. Well, how would you interpret that to be?
Basically, kehi na can actually really say what exactly, you know, God is really about entirely. Jeko ke piche pichtai. Pichtai is repentment. So that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, that from a vocab perspective. So in this case, so Manniyeh over here is, referring to the entity that is, for lack of a better way to explain it, Jada Manya Janda hai, the one that is being manot, is Usdi Gat nahi kiya ja sakti. Is that
Right,
kind of
right.
where you're coming from? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hanji, anything else, Bani?
No.
Hanji, Dilpreet Virji, what is your perspective on this
Hanji.
first one, or even on this in the second point?
Right. The way I see this is manne when is that mannan vadedi, and when we say manna, that is mannan karke. So one who is believing in, and then because of believing, what happens, that is how it is reflected. That first one says that if you believe in it, or one who believes in it, this is what you will see the difference. And the next one is that the Mannan Karka means that the people who believed in it, then this is what the change is. That's how the grammatical difference is there.
Okay, yeah, and that's definitely from a grammatical perspective. What I had a little bit time to do, I quickly went through is Paivir Singh's, Principal Teja Singh's. I didn't get a chance to see Professor Saab Singh's interpretation on that. But I wanted to learn from you all what you think could be the difference in this. But so Dilpreet Virji, from a grammatical perspective, is that entity that is believed in versus as a result of when you translate Manniyeh into believe, that's as a result of that what occurs is from the context of the sentence. That's also what makes sense.
Right.
Hanji. Hanji Ekun Kakorji.
Hanji, whoops.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm not really much of a, grammar expert, so I don't know that I have anything significant to contribute to this particular topic. When I translate it, it's about how it's going to reach the people who are reading it, and just, it's like by trusting what you hear, or when you trust what you hear. Like, that's the way I chose to translate Manniyeh, was trusting what you hear when you listen, because it comes on the heels of Sunya and just making that connection. So for me, it's about, by doing it, these are the things that happen. When you do it, these are the things that happen. But I'm not so into the subtlety about which one particularly means which, and I apologize for that.
Okay, no, nothing to apologize. Just and that's an interesting opinion in itself. Is that it's really the result of Sunnah, the result of listening is, the connection that comes from that. Did you say trust?
Yeah, by trusting what you hear when you listen, and so it's about the Anyway, I don't want to get too into it. We're just talking about these two different ways that it's expressed, but it's the state of conscious. Like, you get Sunya is the first part. You learn how to listen very deeply, and eventually you begin to hear the resonance of things. And then the second part is that the mind has to learn how to accept and trust that experience that happens when you listen, and that's what the Manniyeh or Manneh, is. And that gives you a second set of gifts. Is when you listen, you get one set of gifts, and then when you trust it and you believe in it and you go like, wow, that's actually real, then that gives you a second set of gifts.
Right. So your perspective is all the four Pauris are interconnected, and it's the effect of that trust in what you've heard, or the acceptance of what you've learned continues in that's the theme that continues on.
Right. In fact, for me, the last of the four Pauris, actually, when we talk about what a Sikh is, Guru Nanak defines what a Sikh is in Japji in that last Manniyeh Pauri, and that's the culmination of the whole consciousness that gets developed through the listening and the trusting, and then you become someone that that people, just by being connected to you, are carried across, because your depth of intuition and trusting in that Nam is so deep.
Yeah, that's good.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thank you. Hanji, next is Charan Singh ji.
I think the term Niranjan first time gets introduced in Thapya na jaye kita na hoye ape Niranjan soye. So from my understanding, doha sirayan da khasam aap hai. In one way it is saying ape with the lam, and in the other it is saying with the sihari ape. That is the characteristic of that Niranjan. So whenever that Niranjan is referred as ape, it is with one lam, and whenever that Niranjan is stated as Manniyeh, it's with the lam. So it's all talking about the Manniyeh. When we are talking about the Manniyeh as unfathomable, we are talking in terms of Ajuni, we are talking in terms of the unfathomable Manniyeh, the creator on one side, whereas when the Manniyeh, when the creator manifests as Nam, which is inseparable from it, then it becomes a Dulam. So the first body where it is Manniyeh with one Lam, it to me connotes that it is addressing to that unfathomable part of it, and on the other hand, when it is Dulam, then it is manifesting as nature. That's how I understand it. Thank you.
A kind of a difference between Nirgun and Sargun, ideas of the Niranjan.
Ji.
Okay. Tika, thank you. That's a unique proposition or introspection of it. So Harvinder Singh, your name is next. You want to go? What have you kind of studied, or what is your intuition about what the difference is? Harvinder Singh, you're on mute. Harvinder.
And Vijay, give me 2 minutes. I am trying to connect someone. So if you can give me, I will go at the last.
Okay, then I'll skip. So next I see on the list is Paramjit Singh. Paramjit Singh ji. Okay, maybe there's some technical difficulties there. Paramjit Singh ji, if you're on mute, you have to unmute in order to speak. Chalo, we'll come back to Paramjit Singh ji. So next I see on the list is Ranbir Singh.
Hanji, Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So, since last time when Charan Singh ji pointed out the two words Manniyeh and Manneh, I have looked at these two words in Guru Granth Sahib, and the word Dolawa appears only 3 other places beyond these 3 bodies, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And to my mind, the only difference is that Guru Sahib probably put those 2 lamas from some musical considerations or poetic considerations, and I don't see any other difference in meaning, looking at the context. And then looking at Manneh with 1 lam or 2 lam doesn't matter, but then what does it mean? And I heard the words trust being used, or believe or accept being used, but I looked at references in Guru Granth Sahib, like Guru Sahib says, Satgur Vachan Ratan hai, jo manne so har ras paye. So it means accepting Guru's Vachan. Then says, Rab ki rijaye manne, sir upar, karta manne, aap gwaye. So it's now accepting Rab ki rijaye. And so to my mind, it's like accepting as the real truth, like hukum manne, sirdar dar divani. Hukum manne, that's another thing. So what does manne relate to? Manne now, that comes along. So in all this, like Charan Singh ji pointed out, Manniyeh is really accepting the order that Akal Purkh has created. That, you know, like again going back to Gaviye Suniye Man Rakhiye Pao. It Man Rakhiye Pao of accepting Akal Purkh as the creator, as the doer, and accepting that everything happens according to Hukam. Then what does this mean? And Sacharan Singh ji pointed out the 4 Pauris, and I think Guru Sahib is telling us various stages in those Pauris. For the first one, you know, the 12th one, Guru Sahib tells us, Manne ki gat kahi na jaye. One who has accepted Akal Purkh and his Hukam and his Naam, and of course Naam appears specifically as a Naam Niranjan Hoye. Once one has accepted Naam, then what happens? And the first body, the 12th body, explains the state of mind of that person. And that Guru Sahib starts by telling us that it's indescribable. You know, the Nand and the, I find it hard to describe, the avastha that man gets, or one gets, is manne ki gat kahi na jaye. And there, of course, like it was correctly said, manne refers to the person who is accepted. But then manne is also applied to many other situations. So that's not the only one. And all I would say, the person who accepts, his avastha cannot be described. Manne ki gat kahi na jaye, je ko kahe piche pichta hai. And if someone makes an attempt to describe it, and he's unsuccessful, you know, he feels you're too bad. Why wasn't able to do it? He gets that. He accepts his inability to describe it. Kaad kalam likhna, it can't even be written. Manne ka karan vichar. And they can think about it, think about what happens to a person who has accepted Akal Purkh and his Hukam, but they cannot describe it or write about it. And then in the other 3 bodies, Guru Sahib tells us the 3 stages. Manne surte hoye man budh, manne sagal pa unki sud, manne muh chota na khaye, manne jam ke saath na jaye.
So Uncle Ji, in this case, so what you said is in the first case, Manne is the person who has accepted.
Yeah.
Udi gut, udi halat nahi, you cannot even describe it.
That's
but in the second one, are you saying the same thing? Manne, the person who has accepted.
No, it's having the one who is accepted, manne, you know, having accepted, you know, and
okay, so there is a difference, because I thought my notes that you said there is actually no difference between the first one and the second one, but now what you're saying is, yeah, there is a difference. First one is actually a noun, the person. Second one is the result of mannoing.
Or you could say, if one accepts, you know, manne surt hoye manne sagal paun.
So as a result, yeah. So as a result of acceptance, if one accepts, then surt hoye manne. Okay.
And
okay,
it shows the second Pauri really tells us that he gets gyan, and he understands that death is, you know, not to be something to be feared. And in the 14th Pauri, then he understands which Jivan Jogat, so to say. And he knows his marg, he knows the way to lead his life and go to God. And the 4th one explains, you know, Pave Mokdwar. One has found the way to Mokh. That means conquering Kam Krodlo Mohankar. And then, of course, you know, he's Pravari Sadhar, Tare Tare Gursik, and Nanak Pavinapik. And he's no longer dependent on anybody or solicitous of any favors from anyone. And this all has happened. There's the barakat of Naam. Aisa Naam Ranjan Hoye, Jeko Man Jane, Man Koye. And I think we need to look at carefully this last refrain.
Hanji, we're gonna do that in the next round. We'll be
Jeko
focusing
Man
on that.
Jane, Man Koye. And first Man is with a tippi and a syari, and the second is without the tippi,
Yes.
but there is a syari. And the second one is in the heart, man.
Uncle Ji, we'll do that next. We'll do that after everyone has got on this topic.
I'm sorry, I'm taking too long. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Uncle. So yeah, so also Uncle Ji's kind of conclusion was the person who has accepted, you know, that experience is described and in the first body of the Manniyeh section, and then the others is as a result of, or if acceptance has occurred, what is the result of that? So I think we're kind of converging. There's still a few differences, which is good, nice diversity. So I think, is Paramjit Singh, are you available now? Are you able to share? We're going over like what might be the difference between Manniyeh and Manneh.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Hanji, I listen to everybody, their wonderful input and ideas from all those people who just spoke. My take is that Guru Sahib has tried to convey a process which is a progressive process. Is not a process that we do one thing, you're going to achieve it. When Guru Sahib wrote these Pauris, by definition, these Pauris are the steps. And the Sunni step is the initial step and Manniyeh is the second step. Hello? Yes, okay. Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm hearing some telephone here. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, Sunni is the first step. And my opinion, Sunni is not only a conscious act, as mother is telling you something, you can listen, look at eyes, you know what the mom is telling you. So we have all the sensory receptor to listen. But Guru Sahib did again, what he is talking about, Sunni, unconscious act. If you go back to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, he was in meditative state and he came out and wrote Bani. That is a Sunni, that's a Gyan which comes through unconscious listening. So to me, Sunni is not only a conscious act through 5 sensory receptors what we have it, but also it includes what we listen, what comes to us when we in the meditative state. That is to me a complete Sunni. Coming to money, the second is how to experience that. It is not only can we accept it, we always accept it, but you have to put into practice. But the practice is not for one day, it is an ongoing process. We don't become an ethical person overnight, it takes time. Money for me is again a process where we experience what we have heard, what we have learned, and we put that into our practice, and that's called experiential learning, which is to me is money. It's not emulation. When you talk about emulation, that means it is an instant act, but experiences which comes over time. And that's why we have challenged that naam da khajana immediately nahi aanda. It will come if you money, if you go on doing that, eventually it will come to you. That is my take on that.
Thank you. So as a conclusion on that one, so it seems like your perspective is that manna ya Manniyeh is a holistic. It's not just at the acceptance level. It's also a doing as a result of that. But as far as the difference between from the Gurbani that's jo das kiti hoyi hai, there's actually no difference whether it's grammatical or poetic or anything like that. I think that's what I heard. Okay, so we have one more. Oh, actually two. Harvinder and Saranjit. Is this Saran from Massachusetts, or I don't know who it is, but it just says Saranjit. If you're available, what we're discussing is what might be the potential difference between Manneh and Manneh from the first Pauri of this section versus the other 3 Pauris. Are you able to chime in? No, I saw you go unmute. Hanji bolo.
Hanji Viji, actually, this is the first time I've joined the meeting.
Okay.
I'm going to be a spectator today, but hopefully next time I'll be more prepared.
Okay, no problem. I mean, we'll let Harvinder go, but you can read the Pauris and see if you can, if there's any opinion you have on what might be the potential difference. Then after this, we're going to get into Asa Naam Ranjan Hoy. So you can read up on that. Hanji Harvinder.
Hanji Viji, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think pretty much. I think what I believe is already covered by Ranbir Uncle, that in the first body it is pretty much known that the person who start the manne, basically we can say the naam as well as hukam manna, then we can't describe that person, and then once we accept this fact, then what happens is described in the next three bodies. And but I am also got very interested in what Charan Singh Virji described, that it is basically Sargun and Nirgun. So maybe I will explore after this little bit more on that side also. But I think that's pretty much my take.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we've while we're having this discussion, I think one of the things which needed to be done, and I apologize, I wasn't here last week, so is really to understand what the word man, whether it's manne, manna, man with a siari, manni. You know, that's I think what came out of this discussion we had, or this brief discussion. But manne, I think, is you know, the person who has accepted, you know, and you know, from the context of the sentence, manne ki kat kehi na jaye, the state of that being that has accepted. Of course, what have they accepted? We're talking about the hukam, you know, the divine, natural phenomena. It's indescribable. That experience that one has individually can probably only be also experienced and shown in action. So that was from that perspective. I think Ranbir Uncle, he went through that body as well. And then the manna, I think the conclusion came out as that by accepting, or a result of accepting, if one was to accept, what would be the experience as a result of that? And all of these are bodies, so all of these are progressive steps. That idea was also covered, that Guru Sahib in all of Japji Sahib, and in other Banis as well, Anasa Kiwar is another one, all of the Pauris are building upon each other, and they're going towards an ultimate stage, which gets described as well.
Just a minute here, just want clarification, sorry. When we are talking with these bodies, money question came up last time, and also in the previous discussions. We try to understand manne ki manna haga. My understanding has been aisa naam and ranjan hoy. All these 8 bodies are referring to naam. So far we don't know the difference between hukam, naam, shabad. These are very large concepts beyond our comprehension at this stage. Is going to evolve, we will understand. But we need to be clear. My understanding is that we are talking about naam. Is hukam, I don't know if hukam is same as naam or not, I can't say anything right now. But added cheese, we have to be clear. Maybe aisa naam ranjan hoy. It's very clear, Guru Sahib, in naam. This is my thinking.
Okay. That's a very valid point. And you know, my personal belief is there is no difference between hukam and naam, and like you said, shabad, and many other of these like larger ideas that get introduced within Japji Sahib itself, and then the whole rest of Guru Granth Sahib is just exposing those ideas even further. But I don't know, maybe you know, in the previous 10 Pauris, naam has come, shabad has probably come, and so has hukam. And did anyone want to share really quickly, maybe, that was there an interconnection in this context over here? Is it manna of the hukam or manna of the naam? Who wants to, you know, can just go?
I'm glad to jump in. I'm sorry, my network connection dropped me off for a few minutes.
Okay.
You know, I do think there are these very subtle differences between these words, because Guru Nanak's describing a subtle reality that the human being can access. So when we get into the notion of hukum, we're talking about kind of the cosmic will or the cosmic plan, and that runs through everything and everybody. And when we talk about nam, ultimately we're talking about an experience of the divine identity within ourselves that the mind can merge into. The way to know God is not to try and know the big picture. The way to know God is to know that little piece that lives inside of me. And so when I listen and I learn to trust my own experience of the vibration that I'm hearing on all different levels, my identity, my nam, becomes revealed to myself, and then my mind can connect with that. And in that connection, I begin to know my place in the big scheme of things. So it's not that there's the same, but there's a relationship. There's no way to understand hukum if I'm not connected to that divine identity. And there's no way to do that if the mind doesn't get trained to listen and become sensitive to what the nam is, and then to learn to agree and accept and merge itself into that other divine identity. So that's kind of one way that I would, present it.
Okay, yeah, no, I understood that. I don't know, Virji, Paramjit Singh, if that make sense. There's an interrelationship there. However, I think the trust of what you've heard or what you've listened to, or the acceptance over here, is of that identity, that nam, is what I think Ikonkar Kaur was mentioning. And I had mentioned a little bit before, I don't know if all of you have discussed, and actually Ranbir uncle, he actually mentioned that line, Gaviye, Suniye, Man Rakhiye Pao. So all these three ideas of Gana, Sunna, and Manna has been, Guru Sahib has given an indication, and in other Pauris he will actually expose them further. They're all interrelated as well. They're at a high level, their experience, but there are different forms of experiencing of nam that takes place, which some have translated as living life. Gana, all the Gabe Shabads, singing is not physically singing, but living life in hukum. Sunnah, listening, is experiencing and living within the divine hukum, and Manna is also within the divine hukum, which is all nam. So I've seen and heard those type of interpretations as well.
Can I jump into that, please?
Sure.
Okay. Now, I have a lot of limitation, and I want to draw from the experience of people like Ranbir Singh ji and other people on the panel. Because I'm not very literate in Gurbani, my only concern is that if we are standing on a beach and try to estimate the depth of the ocean, it is too soon to measure that. We have to tread that ocean to figure out how deep the ocean is. By doing the 4th page of Gurbani, we cannot judge what is nam is there. So people who have read Gurbani very well, I just want to request them if they can put some light on that concept of nam, because standing on the ocean, on the beach, I cannot look at the depth, how deep that is. I have to go there. So people who have gone there, they can help me out. I'm reading here another tuk from page 101, and it's very Guru Arjan Sahib ji keh rahe ne, naam nidhan tise prapat jis shabad guru man vutha jiyo. So what the Guru Sahib, what I'm looking at the translation here, कि नाम दा खजाना जड़ा, it comes after you have Shabad. That has to go, and through Shabad Naam comes in. So my concern is Naam is not a simple concept, it's a very deep concept, but if anybody has some idea that we can start working the working definition of Naam, and it's going to evolve over time, that's my request.
Yeah, I don't think there's any going to be any challenge to the fact that Naam is a deep concept. I think everyone is probably in 100% agreement to that. But some will also say that Naam is the simplicity is in its complexity as well. So, but I think if that's what you want to do, we could go directly into the refrain, which is in the four Pauris, which is Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye Yeko Man Jane Man Koy, and that subject matter is purely is straight up Naam and the Man, mind. So maybe let's go and dive into that right now, and maybe some more ideas of Naam will be exposed as we go through that discussion. So who would like to start? I can do the same thing and go. We can go around the virtual table and start with Bani. Would you like to share your views on? So the two things here are Naam. I think Niranjan is another one that needs to be discussed, and then, like Uncle said, Man Jane, Man Koi. There's some nuances about those words as well.
Yeah, so I mean literally it's Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoy. I mean, one translation is such is the name of the Immaculate Lord, Jeko Manjane Mankoe. So you know, one who has come into the faith comes to know that state of mind. So what I interpret this as is when I go back to each body of Manniyeh Surthoy Man Bodh, Manniyeh Savang Sud, Manniyeh Jam Ke Saath Na Jaye. I mean, they're all talking about the person or the faithful who has done XYZ, who has crossed XYZ bridge. And after all this, it's saying, it's almost, I look at it as amazement, like, wow, Asa Nam Niranjan Hoy, such is the name of the Immaculate Lord. And only the one who has felt this knows that state of bliss or that state of mind, and can and have that type of mindset. That's simply, in how I look at it.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I know. I think Sikhi to the Max has Immaculate Lord for Niranjan. Etymologically, I think everyone should know. At least my understanding is Niranjan is without Anjan. So though that entity that is not what comes many times as the translation, not attached to Maya. So, but that's also in itself is a full discussion. What is Maya?
Right.
I think we've had that. But Niranjan over here, and the word immaculate is used. It's also sometimes used as without blemish, not tainted by any impermanent thing. So
right.
Vaheguru is permanent, right? So Niranjan is not tainted by anything that's impermanent. Is one way to look at it, and that is and another grammatical aspect. Others can chip in on that. Niranjan is an adjective of Naam. So that Naam, what is it? It is Niranjan. I think is one way to look at it. But like I said, I'll let others chip in on that. So Dilpreet Singh ji, you want to share with us your views on the refrain Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoy Jeko Manjane Mankoe?
As you said, Niranjan, it came earlier also in Japji Sahib. Nir means without, and Anjan is referred to as Surma. And here it is that which does not have any black mark or which is away from that. And it is referred to as that whoever is above from Maya, and then we need a discussion on Maya too. But then we also need a discussion on Naam. The way I see Naam is, we all need to understand that Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to yogis, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to sannyasis, and he went to the temples, and he went to the priests. So his definition of Naam it was different, and because he brought those people out, there were yogis who were trying to listen to things inside, and they were going to the zero stage, and they were saying that kill your thoughts. And but the definition of Naam of Guru Nanak is thoughtfulness, and it is full of energy. As Virji earlier said, that we have to manifest Naam, and then Gurbani tells us that our ground should be ready. Naam, we have to, it will be manifested, it will grow, and at the end it points us that once it grows, then there will be a reflection in us. That reflection is that we will reflect the guns which are the guns of Vaheguru. So that is how Naam will be reflected in us, and then we will be full of energy and full of motion. And then we can go back to the history also and see the people who we think Jinnah Naam Japya, Jinnah Vand Ke Shakya, we always remember in our Ardas, we start our Ardas with all those remembering our Guru Sahib and then remembering the people. And then the real Ardas starts very late, Pritham Bhagavati Simar Ke. Then before that we remember the people, Jinnah Naam Japya, Jinnah Vand Shakya, and then what are the characteristics? What did they do? They had full of energy, they fought for the cause, and it is not a zero state, it is a thoughtfulness state, and it is full of energy and full of motion. So the way I see this is that Guru Nanak's definition of Naam is a new definition, and it is not the old Vedic or any existing or any prevailing definitions of Naam. But I think we have to draw that clear line, otherwise we will never come out of this loop and we will be going round and round. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Ekunkar Kaurji, you want to go? And I think, obviously everyone will have a view on Naam Niranjan Hoy. Maybe if we can go a little bit deeper into Man Jane Man Koy and what that could be interpreted as, what that could be as well.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I actually want to frame this a little bit in the context of sound and nod, because in my experience and study of Japji, Guru Nanak is a master of sound and how sound kind of precedes form. Ekonkar, one way to describe it is out of the oneness, Om, comes the vibration, Kar, that creates the reality. And he plays a lot in the realm of Om in his teachings and in his writings. And so we have two different identities that we're always wrestling with in life. We have the identity of the mind, which is our concept and our ego and our environments and our impression. And we have this identity of the Nam, which is the deeper, active, spiritual identity that took birth for a reason and has a destiny and a destination. And the two are always vibrating at different frequencies, you can say. The mind is at one frequency and the Nam is at a different frequency. And the point is how to get these two frequencies to start to resonate together so that life can manifest that inner identity. And so this last line to me is all about that process, that the first mun with the tipi is the one who is with that experience of Manniyeh, the person who has mastered that art of listening and trusting. And so I've done the meditation, I've done the singing, I've learned how to listen deeply, I've learned how to hear that inner voice, I've learned how to trust it. And when I become that person who's with Manniyeh, then mun, the mind, begins to know from that perspective. It becomes, rather than knowing by its own thoughts and its own ego and its own concept and its own separate vibration, it begins to know because it's connected to this deeper vibration of the spirit within itself and within everything, and then it's knowing from that place and acting from that place. And so that's my experience and understanding of this line, is that when a person masters this science of sound, ultimately, to listen and trust, then the mind begins to know and learn from that place rather than from its own games and its own ego.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, some of you do know who I am, but I just got back a couple of weeks ago from being an instructor at SIDDUK, which is the program from Sikh Research Institute, and we go over different Sikhi 101 is what I'm the main instructor for that. And in the very first Sikh theology session, the first, we discussed exactly what we're doing now. What is Naam? What is Hukam? What is, creation, etc., etc. And when the goal of life, what is the goal of life for a Sikh? Principal Teja Singh writes about that, and he explains that essentially, imagine, the divine will is being a sine wave, and our problem is the disunion or not in sync with the sine wave. I think it's very similar to what Ekunkar Kaur explained between, the level of what is the state of being of starting with manna versus, you know, being in tune and in sync with nam. That's when truly someone who masters, I wrote it down. So man with the first one is that one who has mastered the art of listening and trusting, which is union with nam. Then you understand what that man really is. So anyway, I just thought the analogy of the synchronizing is used quite often, even from 100 years ago, writing from 100 years ago in English. He was the one who wrote the most in English about Sikh theology 100 years ago. Okay, so who is next? Charan Singh is next.
As I said before, I don't look at Niranjan from just a one word perspective. I try to go and see what it signifies. For example, the two ends of Niranjan means to me that it is ape kathe, characteristic of listening and speaking are in oneness, and that ape ap bisthar. So it is the inbuilt characteristic of Niranjan that it can expand and very unique, very understandable and difficult to, I would say, understand. But I take Niranjan as a totality, not just one word, but based on its characteristic, what it is. For example, thapya na jaye kita na hoye, and then it says ape ape Niranjan soye. So one with the lav and one with the sihari. These are the constituent of Niranjan. That's how the term Niranjan comes up, that it has one, the unfathomable one, and one that manifests and that can expand into many. So I tried not to go for some English words for these, but I tried to look them as the characteristic which are involved the way Gurmat defines, tries to explore these terms. The next Manniyeh, I think Ekunkar Kaurji, and you have also in the G very nicely broad perspectives, and I think we are all in agreement that when it is the Tippi over and Sihari with Nanna, that is a composite, that includes the another part where the Naam is dwelling, and the second Manniyeh with the Sihari only, that is the place where the Naam has to dwell ultimately. That's the empty wave, and that's the filled wave, which have to synchronize with each other. The importance of Manniyeh, as I was explaining before, trying to share with you that when Naam manifests, when Gurmukhe Naam manifests in the human body, and the synchronization takes place, then only the characteristics flow through the human, and then human does not remain as human because the home has already been transcended. So it's all that Jeko manne jane. If one understands and accepts the fact that yes, I could be a home or I could be a conduit through which the Naam will manifest, through which the Naam will flow. It's one's decision to be with the Naam or not to be with the Naam. Manana Naam or not Manana Naam. So when that synchronity comes, the Naam flows, good qualities flows, compassion, care, love flows through that body. Thanks. Thanks, Ji.
Thank you, Ji. Okay, so even in this one, Virji's explanation had to do with the synchronizing of the manifest and the unmanifest. So I think the thread is continuing along. Paramjit Singh Ji, would you like to, we've done a little bit of a discussion on Naam, but with the adjective of it being Niranjan, so we've expanded Niranjan quite a bit. Would you want to share your, so far, what you think Naam, Niranjan Hoy, and Man Jane Man Koy, what that could be, or Any different opinion? Viji, you're on mute. We're not able to hear you.
Who are you talking to?
Yes. Now we can hear you.
Are you talking to me?
Anji.
Sorry. No, I was diverted. No. There are wonderful thoughts which have come from different people about Narinjan. My thought, Narinjan, as you try to provide a meaning to that, to me it simply means that he's a transcendental in nature, that he's above all these things what are happening in the world. So he is a transcendental in nature. So he is not affected by Kam, Krodh, Lo, Mohankar. So once you get to that stage of Naam, if Naam comes into that, once to see Sun liye Bani and Man liye, that you have experienced that over time, you get to a stage that becomes a transcendental state. You are not affected by Dukh, Sukh, Khushi, Gami, Kam, Krodh, Lo, Mohankar. So you are transcendental nature. That is what Narinjan is to me.
Hanji. Okay, and what do you think about Jeko Man Jane Man Koi?
Well, if that is how other people said, if you are committed, sincerely committed to accepting that you are going to follow this way of experiencing Gurbani, you will get to that stage. That means you are telling your mind, man jane man koi, jit the man jada na, mind accepts this, this is the way to do meditation, this is the way to listen and to practice that. That is what it is. It is just telling that if my mind accepts that, then yes, I'm going to get to that stage.
Okay. All right.
That's my thought, anyways.
Hanji. No, thank you for that. Uncle Ji, Ranbir Singh Ji, would you like to give your thoughts just on the Asa Naam Ranjan Hoy? You know, the refrain that has been a part of all of the 4 Pauris.
I'll try to be as brief as it can be, but I think both things are Naam and Ranjan. They have anchored under the last consonant, so they're both nouns and an active voice. And so Naam and Ranjan, it's not Naam, Ranjan, Naam of Ranjan or something. Naam is by itself and Ranjan is by itself. Aisa Naam Ranjan hoye. And on Naam, I have my own analysis. I could be wrong, but I think Naam, we've given it a lot of confusion by trying to define it different ways. Naam simply stands for Akal Purkh. And in Mool Mantar, when it says Satnam, then a lot of people translate truth is his name. That's not right. Sat is existing, reality, one who always is there. And Naam is a generic. For example, we hear read in Guru Granth Sahib a lot of times, Tere Naam Asank, and people call you by different names. And I read out here one line from Guru Granth Sahib which I picked, and it says, Balhari jaun, jete tere naam hai. So, naam can be Akal Purkh, Vaheguru, Allah, whatever, you know. And naam just means Akal Purkh. And then there was talk of what's hukam, relation of hukam and shabad with it. They are part of Paramatma. Paramatma has created this universe under his hukam. So that's a subset or quality of Akal Purkh, that he created this universe according to his hukam, and it operates according to his hukam. And some people call it laws of the universe or whatever. That's okay with me. And then Shabad is something that comes from the Guru, and that helps us lead to Naam. And Guru Sahib again and again tells us that Naam is received from the Guru, and it's through the Sabad. And of course, when we are ready. And then, Jeko man jane man koe, I think we are missing the word jane. And Sir Charan Singh ji, I think, pointed this out. Jane, Guru Sahib has used mostly to mean understand or samajna. Jeko man jane, if someone accepts it, then he understands. Man in the mind, in the heart. Koe is somebody. This means jeko man jane man koe. It's only if someone were to accept God and understand it, that He's within your mind, within your heart. And I think that Charan Singh Ji was trying to say that, if I'm not misinterpreting him, he can make his own comments. But that's the way I look at it. That all these qualities that are described in the 4 Pauris, one goes through those stages and comes up to that state, that avastha. And all this is because of Naam Niranjan. And one who suniye and Manniyeh and jane. And then jane man koi. One knows in his heart that he's received the Naam and understands it. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle. So for me to just kind of conclude what you said is, so Jeko man jane man koe. If you could kind of repeat that again, what your conclusion was, which was you said maybe similar to what Sardar Charan Singh had. So as jada naam hai, jada Akal Purakh hai, Niranjan bhi hai.
Actually, the first man with the tippi and the sari, this means man ke. After you accepted it, Jeko man jane, man
ke jaan
jana, samajh lena.
Achha.
If one accepts this all that Guru Sahib has told us, and then accept it and understand it, that man koi, and within our own heart, we understand that. And I think what Charan Singh Ji was saying was that we not only just accept it, verbally, we practice it in our living, and we make it part of ourselves. And
that's what I
was trying to say.
So it's basically the unmanifest has to become the manifest.
Well, I don't know those words; they're too hard for me.
That's what he had mentioned.
But what I know is that if I accept Paramatma Akal Purakh, and I know He's in my heart, and then I can look at my Jivan Jagat.
Hanji, so many. Okay.
Just one clarification. Wonderful. Can I just ask clarification, please?
Go ahead.
Anji Ramneet Singh ji, बड़े उसने तो idea देता है कि नाम is synonymous to Akal Purakh. You take it as Akal Purakh as Naam. So when I read lines like Naam aur Khad moko sadhu diya, so God becomes subservient to sadhus. This is what it says, or it is saying that I get a little mixed up these. That's what I'm trying to. My feeling is Naam Ras, Amrat Ras. It is the essence of God. Saying that Naam itself is God, I don't know. So I get confused a little bit.
So I can perhaps help you, because I've gone through the same confusion. The word sadhu here means guru. And Guru gave me that name. Not just any sadhu, Sadhu in this particular context is Guru. And I would like to point out, that most places in Guru Granth Sahib, where the word sadhu appears as a singular, it's the Guru. Sometimes Guru Sahib used this word in a plural sense, which means Sangat, sadhu and the Sangat. And that's also, a lot of times the word used is Sad Sangat. And this can be Sad as plural or Sad as singular. Sad Sangat can mean Gur Sangat, Sangat with the Guru. Or it can be Sad Sangat in a congregational mode. And we have to look at the context every time to make sure which is the correct meaning. But in this case, the authority to give name to us, give naam to us, or so to say, introduce us to Akal Purakh, is rests with the Guru. Like
What
Guru
is
Sahib again says, Satguru Moko Alakh Lakhaya. The one who cannot be described, he described him to me. The one he cannot be seen, he made me see it. And it's the Guru who has that authority. And that's why we pray to, I would suggest there are two lines in page 618 and 621 of Guru Granth Sahib. On one there's a Shabad that I prayed to Guru, and then Paramatma was kind to me. And then it says, I prayed to the Paramatma, and then Guru was kind to me. And it says, had a reciprocal relationship between the two. And those are very interesting. I would suggest that you look at page 618 and 621.
No, I really appreciate that. What you just said. Sadhu introduces to Akal Purakh. Now, when
No,
introduces the
Sadhu is Guru. Sadhu is Guru.
Okay, Guru introduces to Akal Purakh. What do you mean by introduce? How does the introduction take place? Is it just instantaneous, or is it a process?
Oh, it could be.
I think
it would be Chinmay, but that's another discussion. It's a long.
Yeah,
it's
I think so. Those are very, very good questions, Paramjit Singh ji. I think that's the kind of discussion and have perspectives not just from Uncle Ji but also others from the panelists would be that would be a great question. What is introduced? And as we all have gone through this, language has all its limitations, and I know exactly what Ranbir Singh Uncle is saying, and it's just the limitation of the English language. Introduce, that if we know what introduce means is business cards they can introduce karo,
it's not quite that.
It's not like that. It's more of a experience, which maybe Ikonkakor had mentioned. That idea of going through that experiential process of having that illumination or that understanding. But I do want to, sorry to interrupt, I want to make a time check. We are at 10 past 10.
Yeah, so we are late already, so I think we can, if you have any last thing, we can close with that final remarks for today. And I just have one question. So next week, do we want to continue on this 4 Pauris, and there may be some more concepts we want to clarify, or a panel member wants to move to the next Pauri? How we want to proceed?
This is Ekonkar. I would like us to spend time at least on the 15th Pauri, because that is where Guru Nanak defines what a Sikh of the Guru is, and I think it's a really important thing to pay attention to and talk through. So I'll go, whatever the panelists want to do, I'm fine with, but that would be my vote, is that we at least go in depth into that Pauri and really look at the way he talks about what a Sikh is in that particular verse.
Okay, thank you very much. I think so. I think anyone else? Otherwise, I think we will continue one more session on this Pauris.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you could divide it up into 2 sections. One is to go over some of the steps, like Uncle had said, that the Manniyeh are actually going to. There's a conclusion in the 15th one of a Mokh Dwar, and as Ikonkakor is saying, is of a definition of a Sikh is also introduced over there. So maybe divide it up. You do the first 3. The first 3. And then the last 4th one, 2 sections for next week might make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to conclude that, I mean, it was a great discussion. We've kind of confined, it's because of the time we have, confining the discussions just to particular words maybe does not do justice. It's really the higher level ideas and concepts, but I think we got a good overview, and I'm a big fan of diversity of opinions, but I think we got a good diverse kind of opinions of what is the difference between Manniyeh and Manneh. Some said that there's actually no difference. Others said one's a noun versus a verb, and just usage of that could be poetic, there could be grammar. components to it. We also got a very interesting perspective that Manniyeh and Manniyeh is like just like the similar of Ape and Ape, which is the kind of evolving on the definition of Niranjan. In the second half, we discussed the refrain that is in the four Pauris, which is Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye Jeko Man Jane Man Koye. Oh, sorry. We also had a diverse opinion on Kisdi Mannan di Keri Gal Ho Rahi si. Is it Manna of Hukam or Manna of Naam? And is there a difference between that? Which I think is always an interesting discussion to have. But Aisa Naam Niranjan Hoye Jeko Man Jane Man Koye was the conclusion of each of the Pauris. The S which we got a good in-depth analysis of what is Niranjan. Different points of view again. And I think we converged, at least as far as I can tell, many had the same element of Jeko Man Jane, Man Koye has to do with, when one understands and has that connection with Naam, then only one can then manifest that and take action and allow that understanding to go forth and start our methodology of living. Jeevan di Jugats Pechan Lende is kind of one of the things that was discussed. So I thought it was a great discussion, bringing everyone on the kind of the same page, but still also allowing diversity of thought in there. So, and I apologize if I didn't prepare much in advance, but I think the discussion was fruitful, and more until next week. My schedule goes up and down. I don't know if I'll be able to join, but I will look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki
Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.